Hello, everybody. My name is Wim Winters, and welcome to another practicing session with Beethoven, of course. It's Monday, but I'm pre recording this, so this is not a live stream, it's a premiere. So, as we have on Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. at the clavichord, most of the times. These sessions are wonderful for me for practicing, and I get a lot of responses from you saying that you love these sessions. So, we just continue doing them. So today we are diving into the Beethoven Allegro con Brio again of the opus 2 number 3. That's Beethoven's Pianosonata number 3 actually. So that's the set of piano sonatas that Beethoven dedicated to Haydn. It's number 1, 2 and 3 together. And I will be looking today in this practicing session to settle the tempo, which is really important because, as I mentioned in last practicing session, Czerny indicates 80 for the half note, which is a tempo that you will find a lot by other musicians like Moscheles. You have this kind of similar number in the von Bülow Lebert edition. I think is even a little bit slower. So Czerny is on the fastest side, so to say, with 80. Moscheles has 76 and Czerny has 80 and 84, something like that. My tempo used to be, before I really dived into these metronome numbers, kind of 90, 88, 90. And now you might say, well, that's not so big of a deal because that's just what from 80 to 90, that just is nothing. Yeah, it's a little bit more than 10%. And that's true. I do think that if you play the sonata in about 88 or 92 range, that you still will have, you know, this spirit of what those people in that time kind of were used to hear this piece in. And you know, if you're new to this, these practicing sessions, we apply here the theory of the double beat, the whole beat, if you would like to, where the full oscillation, the full swing, the full Schlag, or actually the Schlag in German, which is up and down. There is actually not a lot of discussion about this. It's just the application from of that definition to the metronome number. That's where people are debating about, which is actually kind of ridiculous because that's not so hard to trace back, so to say, in sources. But if you apply that, you have 80 on the metronome. And so Czerny indicates the minim, the half note, and instead of every tick giving a half note, every full Schlag, so tak, 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 is a half note. So every tick actually is indicated the parts of that. What in German is called the Taktteile. The takt, synonym for Schlag, tempo, taktus. It all comes forth from the older Mensural notation, which in the 16th and 17th century was very much applied. And that, what we call in Dutch jargon, you would say this terminology, that just continued. It's not so hard, again, to trace that back. So anyway, we're approaching that from that perspective. And so if you are choosing a tempo of 90 or 92, what Czerny indicates 80, you might say, well, that's up to you, your decisions. It's you are in charge, you're the musician, you make the decisions. And that's so true. On the other hand, you might say as well, that's the tempo of Czerny, who was very close to Beethoven. And not only that, that's the tempo actually they agreed up on by large. Sometimes you have a little bit of, the Moscheles indicates a little bit faster, a little bit slower, and so there is a certain range of, let's say, about 10%. So you're good there. 92 is okay, but the piece changes so much. So I want to force myself to get this tempo of 80 in my blood, so to say. And you can witness my attempts and my failures as well. Because what happens is that you slowly speed up while playing. And so what I did this week, and was an interesting experiment. If you play slower pieces, then playing along with the metronome is fine because it will guide you. You will have the room. The metronome is not ticking so fast. Here 80 is kind of speed, and you need a little bit more around this 80. I wouldn't say going to 90 or slowing down much to 70 hours, but just a little bit makes a huge difference. So what I will do is just play parts and to have the tempo fit, so to say, and then see what happens if I let the metronome go and only check from time to time. It was an interesting experiment because suddenly music lifted. Sometimes you have that you are struggling, and this is regardless of any tempo you choose. I mean, every musician knows that feeling that you are practicing a piece, certainly in this case, a piece that I know for years, and suddenly the connection is lost. There is not anymore this, and oftentimes what helps is just playing it through as unmusical as you can. Just clean the table. Even practicing with the metronome as if this is an etude. And what happens then is you start adding automatically accents, elements of expression that you are unaware of. And this lightens the music up again. It are all so small details. And I can imagine if you would hear me play a piece of which I say to myself afterward, this was complete rubbish. I mean, boring. Nobody's interested in that. The chances are big that you would say, well, it's okay. I don't hear a much difference with what you would claim to be a good performance. But if you would compare that to what a musician, or in this case me, would say, well, this now I feel everything is right. It's just balanced. It's just hitting that one point, you would hear the difference immediately, and that's interesting. So there we go. I decided it's Sunday afternoon now. I'm recording this, so one day up front, and the sun is shining. I decided not to lighten my white daylight lights, which you don't see on camera because I changed the white balance. So you see a very warm light, but actually it's a little bit cold sometimes, white, which is very nice to work with cameras. Cameras really love that. But now we are just here with our two trusted IKEA lights, which are great because they don't produce heat. And before we start, the real reason that we are not live now is that exactly in the moment where you will see this as a premiere, Joris is working at the Fritz. So that's the reason. Okay, let's try and see where this all leads to. Let's try to use this metronome for a change. So I will try to just play, I will play a few fragments now and to have this tempo really. It should work because I practiced this, this should be fine. And then dangerous place to accelerate. We're going to talk about this passage. Czerny writes, very interesting, to create the expression of the mood of the character without doing too much with the tempo, just playing strictly in time. And it's a little bit opposite to what we were talking about, what I was practicing last week. I heard a kind of noise that I didn't like on my computer, so let's hope it's okay. Let's check again. I play it a little bit cooler now, you know, not doing too much, not trying even. And dum bum bum, check the tempo. Ya da 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 dum dum dum, rum bum bum. You see my arm up and down, yum bum bum, rum dum yum. Okay, ya pa 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 da 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 dum, and then chum dum. Those are difficult drills. And dum bum bum ba yum. It sounds really frightening here in the bass. I don't know if you can hear that with this recording equipment, but no pedaling. Sorry. It sounds so long, this piano. Difficult passage, by the way. And then so if you're tuning in now, later, I'm kind of, and it's not live, by the way, if you're tuning in later, it's a recorded session, this one. It's sometimes hard to see on YouTube. They should change that, definitely. I'm trying to first create this tempo feeling before I start playing. Here, Czerny writes pedal here. Czerny writes pedal, which is kind of obvious. Okay, I should be fine to go now. Let's just see where we come. By the way, all those notes without slurs, and certainly in this time, there is a very interesting study on Beethoven. It's really, really nice. By it's not a Chinese woman, Suan Li and something. I will make a video on that because it's really worth checking out, and it's on the internet, on Czerny's interpretation of Beethoven's works. It's great. She makes a comparison between sources, Hummel, Czerny, and others, put it in, just take the excerpts and we'll just index that per item, and has a really deep understanding on applying that to the works itself. It's great, except for tempo. Tempo is really, of course, a chapter without a solution. It's actually funny to read. But other than that, And so it's interesting for me also to see what Czerny writes in the pianoforte school and combine it with Hummel, combine it with C.P.E. Bach and some other sources, even C.P.E. Bach. And that's difficult to do, you know. You read one book, but just to remember everything else that Hummel writes. And there are such small differences, sometimes significant, sometimes not so significant, but it's interesting to know. And the slurs, it's interesting because what do slurs mean? And she actually makes it very clear. I see it now much clearer than I saw, that the short bows are legato with an articulation gap. The longer bows are up for debate. But if there are no slurs, no bows, and certainly in this time, like this, it's articulated, which is something we've been talking about a lot of times. It's rather obvious. It's what I called the das Brillantenspiel. And I still cannot talk very well with my throat, you know. Sorry for that. It's better now, but still. So Brillantenspiel doesn't mean virtuosity by definition, but it sounds a little bit more virtuosic because you articulate. It sounds more lively. That's what the con brio. It's that perhaps what Beethoven intended. That's, of course, con brio means lively, but das Brillantenspiel, brilliant playing, also means lively. So they match there. So if people see today Allegro con brio, yeah, that must be very fast and very virtuosic and enormous. No, it's a way to describe the way of playing, but what it exactly means in terms of tempo, it's not so clear. It's not like Allegro molto. That, of course, is faster than Allegro, but Allegro con brio, the con brio, is that related to tempo? I don't know. Certainly not make things slower. That's not what I want to say, but exceedingly faster. And by the way, this is a movement that you seldomly hear, if ever, in single beat. Most common tempi are 63, 66, like that, half note. As with a lot of today's performances, the fast movements, they are all on 60 to 70, 80% of what the half beat, actually single beat interpretation of the metronome would mean. Okay. I come back to you. I have to switch cameras. There we go again. Check the tempo now. That's perfect, 80. So if I sometimes get comments from people say, well, just play it less you feel it and things, and yeah, I understand. So the purpose here is to prepare the Beethoven project, and I want to come as close as possible to, whatever Beethoven might have had in mind, or in this case, Czerny. So that's true, but the same applies for every tempo. If you are a musician that wants to, every musician that wants to bring a story, that wants to bring an interpretation of a certain piece, is his or her own tempo. So the only additional fact or additional thing that I'm doing is, just trying to fit, in this case, Czerny's tempo into my understanding of the piece. That's not easy, that's hard. But once that is filtered through, so to say, then it's for every musician, again, regardless of tempo choice, a matter of making sure that that tempo is stable. So that's what we're doing now. And I'm happy that I ended on 80. The more difficult passages of accelerating are actually the 16th note, so the runs, that feels great on the keyboard. But also, surprisingly, of course, this is terrible without pedaling and kind of staccato, but also this passage. It's very easy to accelerate there. Is that a problem on its own? No, not really. You can even think on slowing down. But that's something I want to only decide later. First, rigidly lay the foundation of this movement, and I'm actually happy. So I was presenting with you the final result of practicing this week, but this piece went through my mind a lot of times. So let's just go through it again, because next week probably we will move forward to the Adagio. And there is so much more to say about this. What I plan to do in the future and is on the channel actually, is having the live session on Monday as we can. And today, again, Joris is working on my pianoforte, so it's hard to do a live stream while he is checking every tone. And I'm not really filming that. It's something that, some people like I don't mind opening everything here and playing live for you a piece that is not ready yet, but you have to respect that. But on Monday, live practicing session or recorded practicing session. On Tuesdays will be the standalone recordings as we have now, and tomorrow will be another Beethoven variation. That forces me to end all of that. We will have also kind of, swelling and Buxtehude on the clavichord. That will be from time to time also, like a Mozart sonata, a Haydn sonata. But of course, obviously, Beethoven will be the main thing to follow, main composer to follow. And then on Wednesday, I would like to have a kind of scripted video a video that I prepare with a little bit more effort in editing, as the Isidore Philippe series, as the Mozart Distraction video. We had a lot of those in the past. There's a playlist now on the YouTube channel. You can check that out with those sessions. Not only relating to tempo research, we will diversify a little bit more into also technical things, fingerings, early fingerings, which is a topic that many more people should talk about and study, because also here we see how important it is. The Czerny fingerings are just giving insight in the interpretation, his interpretation of the Beethoven works. So on Thursday we have the practicing session at clavichord. Then I have already recorded 10 Czerny etudes on this piano. They are ready to edit, but it's not too much work to edit. You will have 3 camera positions there. We'll give them one after another. So first a general vision like you have now, then the camera which is here at the organ, as with this Frenzel by now, and another one here. So I will give you the etudes 3 times after each other, with the score, without the score, so that you will really have a kind of reference to go to if you want to practice that. That's on Friday, but I want to wait with that etude series. I will go every week until I finish my introduction to tempo research. I want to go have that video first, so I can refer to that. And then in between those 5 fixed dates, I can make some very short videos just grabbing the camera with a simple shotgun microphone, which is terrible sound for the instrument, but you will hear my voice, sharing some small details that are, you know, on my way while practicing, that might be of interest to you. See how to manage all of that. But I think if we organize that, that will be possible. So all of that in the Beethoven practicing session. Sorry to spend a few minutes on this schedule, on this because that's not the reason why you're here. So let's talk about this beautiful passage here, which is such a big contrast to the opening. And I was doing some YouTube research, I mean, just checking some recordings. It's so unbelievable that we have all these recordings available. For this sonata, what kind of tempo people are playing it. And I ended up recording by Michelangelo, which is a great pianist, of course. He plays it also in around 66, so basically too slow if you believe in single beat. But then, even they slow down, of course, in the second theme a little bit. It sounds so... If you're not used to hear that, I should... And it's not a critic on the musician Michelangelo is, or every other pianist is. They're much greater pianists than I am. But it just sounds so silly. It's just so without any depth. I mean... It goes so fast that you cannot understand. It's like somebody rambling over his words and following over his words, and you say, ho, what are you saying? What are you talking about? Please say it again, a little bit slower. But you miss the character of this. It's so, like Schindler describes in his Beethoven biography, that many of these beautiful slow movements or sad effects are just silly dance motifs in tempi that are just too fast. It happened in that time as well. So what to do with the left hand? So you have two options. Either, that's not an option actually, you just play what is written. I come back to that. So I get this reaction a lot, or question, because I hold notes. And then some people ask if that's allowed in that style. But yes, it's required, it's necessary. So holding notes, actually playing legatissimo, but that's not really legatissimo. It's making the voices clear within the structure of notation. They didn't indicate that, because if they would, you wouldn't be able to read that again. So there's no discussion actually that the left hand you should hold the bass. How long? That's up to you. But here I think it's... Now you have here... So it's unbelievable, only this left hand. And if you then play... If you play that in 80, single beat, that's something double as fast is really much faster. Then it's just a transition piece, and it's not. It's essential here in this composition. It's such a big contrast. But see how much... How many possibilities. So what to do with the D and the E and again the D? Tom, ram. Do we make a rhythmical kind of counter effect? So you have yum, pum, pum, chua, chua. It's like, this reminds me of the Pièce d'Orgue by Bach. So you have on the end also, I cannot play it, I don't remember it anymore. You have this pedal, and it goes chromatically down. It's so nice. And this kind of same effect. So are we playing then the tenor voice, which obviously it is, or just short? I think long is beautiful. And then you have the notes in between. So if people ever say that playing in whole beat or double beat, actually it's whole beat, is easy, those details that we're talking about now on an action like the Viennese piano, which is not an easy action because it doesn't allow you to really control the softness. Playing hard is not a problem, but soft is really a problem. But those details really become essential. So the B flat, now we're talking not on the G, on the D, but on the B flat. Legato or not? Probably yes. It's difficult because if you want to hold the D longer, or make it, no, if you want to make the D tom, rom, then the B flat is a little bit in the way of that. Listen. They have all the dim, ta ra ri dum, ta 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 ta, which is of course not what we want. So a little bit detached. Or not. And then the right accent on the first note. Listen to how important that is. It's too much. And this D, hold it as long as you can. And then. I don't know if you hear that, but this A still sounds. What a big contrast. And again, so left hand here, as in many cases, is key in everything. The right hand just needs to be cantabile. The left hand gives the rhythm, gives the tempo, but creates this, builds this atmosphere, this character. It's essential. If it doesn't work, I mean, if you missed all the details or some of the details here, and still this is very nice. But if you can hit all of that, what we're talking about now, then suddenly there is something that you say, oh my God, how on earth is somebody able to compose such a thing? Still in tempo, I like that. Too fast. So what you can do then is also, I don't know if it applies to this movement, which is in Allegro, the tempo rubato of the 18th century, in which you drag a little bit or just go a little bit faster in the right hand while the left hand is just giving the rhythm, as Chopin. We talked about that. So left hand always steady. There are actually very, very few exceptions on that. It's a pity that Czerny is one of the few, but that sentence where Czerny says that if you have long ornaments, that you can slow down a little bit to make it fit, is taken out of context to prove that every music in the 19th century can be slowed down and whatever, according to the ornaments to make it fit. What is necessary if you want to play a little bit in single beat? Chopin nocturnes, for instance, still then you need to drag the tempo a lot, the basic tempo, to make it work. But actually that's not what Czerny says. He says the foundation where you start from is that you take a tempo in which that's possible to play. But if you missed that tempo, that's actually the context. It's not just as explicitly written as I'm interpreting it, but you can understand it from that, and it's hard to say differently. That if your tempo doesn't allow those ornaments to fit in, you obviously you slow down, and then he says, okay, do that. Again, that's a little bit up for debate, but certainly in a passage like this, it's just playing strictly in time. He actually says that, he writes that in his pianoforte school. Don't make the effect by too much tempo rubato, and I think he means here the new way of tempo rubato, which he describes as well, dragging the tempo, accelerating a little bit. It's not really a lot, it's very nuanced. It's like Moscheles also writes about that in the Schindler biography, that the annotated version, the English one. He says it's not about big differences or very subtle differences that you make as a musician, which are essential to create the music, but it's not much. The listener won't notice that. That quote of Moscheles, that's the same quote in which he refers to the metronome number that only applies for the beginning. Because of that. That's such an essential quote to have it as a whole, not the first sentence. The first sentence for Moscheles, the metronome only applies for the beginning. It's just taken out of context, say, well, it's only for the beginning and then we slow down, whatever. As if a metronome number, a tempo indication, is given only for the first line and then you do whatever you want. No. It applies only for the first bars because of that, these little shades, these little nuances that this machine obviously cannot give you. And by the way, if you play in double beat or whole beat, those nuances still are possible because there is room for that. But anyway, now back to the second theme here. This is such a nice part because you have here, after this left hand, then again the rhythm is introduced, where you will fall back in the same pattern, but in the right hand you still have the syncopations that are so beautiful and create such much suspense, I would say, musical suspense. But here in the left hand, there starts the rhythm again, and against those syncopations, that's actually unbelievable nice. So it's those small details put composers like Beethoven aside from basically all other musicians, composers, of course, not saying Mozart, Schubert, that level, but that's what keeps this music alive and keeps it interesting. Part of it. Actually, so now first time I do this, that the bass note, I emphasize it a little bit, I give it a little bit of time to make it really a counter voice against the syncopations. Let's try it again. Mostly the second time will be too much, but we'll see. Okay. And of course this is cha-ra-ram-pom-pom. Also there you have a beautiful showcase of how the of course you don't play, you play it. Left hand dot. You go, you just proceed with it. So, bum, bum. And then forte, not fortissimo. That's an important distinction also Czerny makes. I was reading about it in that study about this from this Mrs. Suan Lee. Of course, it's the name I should memorize, but that's an important thing. Forte is not fortissimo. We see this passage as well. It's of course with all brilliance that it displayed these days, but it's forte, it's not fortissimo. Beethoven was really keen on his dynamic expressions. Piano, pianissimo. Also here, piano, pianissimo, which is difficult. Just switching the camera, not cameras. It's only one camera. So piano, pianissimo, which is hard on this piano. Make a distinction. So perhaps I have to figure out piano was not as soft as I think it was. Now, because I have to make the gradation of pianissimo, piano, pianissimo. So, yeah, I actually think this is a very important piece for me now in the development of this Beethoven project, because I was forced to look into more details than I was perhaps in the previous ones, where the solution, so to say, was more evident. And I will record those two first sonatas in the coming weeks. They will go as standalone recordings on the channel as well. And I'm really curious to see with the little preparation that I will do. I mean, I will prepare obviously those recording sessions, but normally I should be able to do that with not too much of preparation time, because I practice them so well. And I'm interested to see how what we learned here applied to that. So looking forward to your reaction to those recordings as well. So okay, hope you liked this session. We could spend hours talking about this. Let's do next Monday. Hope to be live then. I have not a really sight on my agenda. We'll see next Monday how things go. School is again, no, Monday is still the last day of holiday for the kids. We'll see. Anyway, that will be the Adagio, which is also a piece that we might do 2 weeks, because there is a lot to be said about this Adagio, which is really nice. It's opening the Romantic era, Czerny writes, and that's for sure it is. He kind of forgot that actually Mozart was doing that already, if not Clementi. It's those scenes of, wish I could say that in Dutch, this loneliness, it's the era of feelings and of call for nature, call to nature also. So people going out of the cities, live in the, move away from the cities in summertime. Things like that. It's actually happened in C.P. Bach's time. So the call for nature. Bach also, C.P. Bach went outside Hamburg and the places where he lived and worked to take baths, to have some holiday perhaps even, but outside the city. And so that idea of romanticism, coming as close as possible to nature, is actually something that you see reflected in the works actually with Bach, C.P. Bach, perhaps for the first time. Mozart, of course, collects all of that in an incredible way. Clementi paves the way for that as well. And then Beethoven, lift this stylistically to a level that you might not understand. It's ununderstandable for us human beings. Okay, guys, hope you like this session. And as always, thanks for being here. And thank you for my patrons. If you would like to support the things we're doing, the patrons are, as we speak, the backbones of what we are doing. The backbone of what we are doing. So I appreciate you checking that out very much. There's a link here below or in the description box. Next time, Thursday, at the clavichord with the last part of Mozart. It will be a pre-recorded practicing session as well. And as for now, again, thanks for watching and see you soon again.